English translation 884th contact Saturday, the 13th of April 2024, 13:26 hours.
I can leave our greetings aside when I recall our conversation, and the fact that you all came back here a few minutes earlier than announced is not important. What is important, however, is what the guy in Trinidad is lying about and deceiving his cult members with such unbelievably blatant lies that all the beams are cracking and collapsing. Here you can read in the computer itself what this guy from Trinidad emailed to, which was immediately forwarded back to Bernadette. You can read it here because Bernadette downloaded it onto a USB stick so that I can let you read it here.
Hi, Bernadette, thank you. Yes, this is interesting, and good this is now coming to light. And as I have just been informed from New Zealand, Jedi has checkmated himself with his conclusion to the conversation he and I had last night, which he circulated within PSI, at least from a FIGU point of view.
The message from Jedi.
Today was a polarizing but very special day. I met with CF and he had a message for me from the Plerin. The Plerin are distancing themselves from PSI, but they didn't say we weren't right about our ideas. So it is a larger political game being played. The Plerin directly had a message for me. Best approval ever. So, yes, publicly, we will appear as being distanced and a statement will be announced, but in reality, it is a silent approval from the Plerin. They are doing this for our and their safety because we PSI have discovered too much, too quick. My guess is they want us to go off and do our own thing. Now we are under the full protection of the AA. This is secretly the best news.
The New Zealanders have some persons who helped Jedi to publish the book, but after my answer, the wheat should be separated from the chaff. NB. I have already sent Billy a draft for the news item on our website, but he still wants to discuss it with Ptah and Quetzal. Kind regards.
Reply from Bernadette to.
Hi, yes, is that still possible? This is anything but insightful, and he just spins everything to his liking, and as if everyone agrees with his PSI. That absolutely has to be put right. Because I cannot see anything about checkmating himself, on the contrary. In my opinion, and based on his message, you have not spoken to him clearly enough, which you should definitely make up for. Kind regards, Bernadette.
That cannot be true. That is...
I also think, namely the hammer of all lies and deceit, because I cannot imagine that you, Ta, or the committee ordered this, what this Trinidad sectarian claims. That is why I also called Quetzal and explained everything to him and that he should inform you, which he did immediately, and you, and also all of you, are now here.
Unfortunately, it cannot be postponed, and right at the beginning is to fight against the lies and deceit.
Excuse me, but we have a saying here. Stop the beginnings. And since a beginning of evil is about to happen, I thought you should be called immediately.
That is also a good thing, because what is written in this email does not correspond to the truth in any form, even in one letter. Because overall, everything corresponds only to such an outrageous lie and a prepotent deception as I could never have imagined. It is effectively more than just presumptuous. Arrogant, mendacious, presumptuous, and boundlessly arrogant to presumptuously devise such lies and fraudulent claims in order to indulge in self-delusion, self-aggrandizement, and megalomania. This person calls himself Jedi Reach. Although the correct name is probably Jedediah Ramnarine, as we have since discovered, and who has fraudulently formed a cult under the name of Peace-Seeking Intelligence, Sarai's. Whose followers are blind believers in and addicted to his lies and deception. And what is now written in his claims of lies, as I can read them here on the screen of your computer, is so brazenly deceptive and also crude that I cannot understand how even a halfway educated Earth human can consider this to be the truth. in the form of a belief which is also so sectarian that even a still uneducated child would perceive and recognize the fraud, the lie, and the deception from everything. But the fact that adult Earth humans, even if they are obviously only halfway educated, adhere to these lies and the sheer fraudulent claims of this irresponsible and obviously money-hungry cult leader and unquestioningly regard his lies and fraud as truth is simply incomprehensible to me. In truth, we distance ourselves in every possible wise from this Earth human and his sectarianism, which is in every wise untruthful and harmful to faith. So I myself have also never dealt with this cult leader or his cult and his cult members in any manner. Nor have any other Plejaran personalities dealt with Jedi Reach, that is to say Jedediah Ramnarine, or made any concessions to him or his cult believers. Besides, this is to be explained the first time we received anything from this cult person, and his cult was when you informed us about it. And how brazenly and impudently this sect leader now continues with his lies and claims of fraud after these have been proven to him is proof of his impudence, as you say in each case. Effectively, neither I myself nor any person of us Plejaran have said or promised such things as he mendaciously claims. As well as not, and in no wise could the brazen lies be deduced or also misunderstood in the wise this sect leader lies and deceives. It is also to be explained that we Plejaran are not, and in no wise, the guardians of the earth. Nor do we interfere in any politics, world affairs, religion, or any other matters, for we keep strictly away from that and have our task only to assist you in your mission in a manner known to you. Our committee would also not allow anything else, so we adhere to its strict instructions in every respect. It is also impossible that we could have given the cult leader, liar and deceiver Jedi Reach, alias Jedediah Ramnarine, any concessions, endorsed his lying and deception in any way, or placed it under our protection. The lying statements he makes in his email, as he apparently also makes to the faithful followers of his sect, are based entirely on fabricated lies and deception that are as unrealistic as the fantasy lie that something that has died can be brought back to life. Just as this lie, from which a religion full of lies and deception has been built, has given rise to many sects. The teaching that you teach in fulfillment of your mission, the teaching of the truth, teaching of the creation energy, teaching of the life, will be used to falsify it and form sects from it, but this is to be prevented. Already it is the third time that this has been attempted. First by Ilse von Jacobi, then by Hans-Ruedi Glanzmann, who falsified everything and spread it worldwide, and now by Jedi Reach alias Jedediah Ramnarine.
That should be clear now. But you openly mention the name of this sectarian, and also there are others who have already missed the mark. So I guess that is where I, as usual, put dots when I call everything out and write it down, because as you know, it is not in me to mention the names of persons.
But that would not be correct in this case, because it should be known which person dares to spread such falsifications and lies, and deny a mendacious sectarianism from the truth.
That is correct. And we have also decided that from now on, names should also be mentioned openly with regard to such incidents.
I will think about that, because your decision, well, I will think about that. As I have been told, this guy is really labeled as work-shy, a human being who is too lazy to work, and only wants to live at the expense of his fellow human beings, collect money, and live a life of pleasure and glory.
We have also realized this during the last few hours as we have sought insights following your call and explanations.
Aha, then you were all involved in finding out everything that is really going on around the sectarian.
We have, yes.
It is really unpleasant.
It is indeed, because the whole cult system has already established itself worldwide. Consequently, many have already been misled and led into belief regarding the lies and deceitfulness of the Jedi Reach, aka Jedediah Ramnarine, from which they now have to extricate themselves, but that will not be easy for them.
Yes, and there are even some among the followers of this cult leader who should know everything better and are allies of the Figu organization. But Bermunda, Florina, and I have to leave now, because we still have our duties to fulfill. Goodbye, Edward.
Also, goodbye, dear friend, goodbye.
I also wish you goodbye, dear father friend.
Then I wish you the same. Well, they are gone.
That is indeed the case, and it must also be said that was gullible, far too trusting, and not investigating enough, otherwise everything would probably have been avoided. There should effectively be much more realistic research and also thinking in the future, which unfortunately was not done back then when Ilse von Jacobi and Hans Ruedi Glanzmann falsified the conversation reports and the teachings in order to exploit them commercially and when they circulated the falsifications worldwide. Everything that was attempted to entice you to do this, to get to the Pleiades through your intervention and as well as also just to be able to participate in our connections with you, that corresponds to much more than just a request, because...
I remember that very well, because it was a real imposition, which I not only judged as impertinence and impudence, but would also have meant more openly. Moreover, in 2 cases with consent, that would have made me. That would really have been missing in the can of worms. But the fact that this would have landed me in hot water did not matter to those who wanted their wishes fulfilled.
That was unfortunately the case. I remember that very well. Also what my daughter Simyase told me in this regard, because she was present several times unnoticed, as when and first came to you in Hinwil and together already expressed the request, which they then nevertheless repeated several times over the next few months until, full of disappointment and anger, they broke off the connection with you with a lie.
And after all, there was also sectarianism involved. And what sectarianism, which of course I resisted, as well as the crazy imposition that...
That is what my daughter told me, which I found to be an outrageous request, but also what I found to be outrageous and despicable. What this sect leader, Jedi Reach, a.k.a. Jediah Ramnarine, mendaciously and deceitfully claimed in the letter I was able to read at the beginning of our conversation. When I look for earthly terms to describe this man's thoughts and actions, all I find is that his behavior is unhealthily pathetic, deceitful, and mendacious. And to that end, I want to state again emphatically that neither I nor any other person of us Plejaran have had anything to do with this sectarian leader in any form or given him any hopes or guidelines. We were completely unaware of this lying and deceitful person and his existence, which is why we only became aware of him through your information, although we distance ourselves from him in every form and also do not wish to enter into any kind of relationship with him. All their lies are so degenerate that they can also be described as fraudulent.
But what works tremendously on sham thinkers because they do not question the whole of his infamous lies and deceit. They just blindly believe it. All these bogus thinkers who are believers in this sectarian man have never learnt to think for themselves, but have been trained and indoctrinated to believe from an early age. As a result, they have never realized that the right thing to do in life is to muster the energy and strength to think for themselves and not simply believe. Consequently, they believingly fall prey to liars and deceivers, who are disgraceful and despicable as well as vile. Shameful and cunning, contemptible, deceitful, perfidious, sly, treacherous, and often even conniving, driving those who think falsely into a belief in some idiotic things and making them dependent on it. This happens in a wise that the masses of humanity are usually deceived by the majority of those who want to get into governments, authorities, or other high positions in which they then have something to say, to direct or otherwise report in a commanding or simply instructing manner. When they make themselves available, they act as if they cannot hold back a drop of water, present themselves as peaceful, liberal, and even religious and close to the people. But this only lasts until they are at the helm, because then they let the devil out of the bag and show their true colors. They start riding around on their fellow citizens, imposing new laws, taxes, ordinances, rules, bans and fines, etc., right up to military service, where murder is compulsory, and this is then mendaciously proclaimed as self-defense and peacemaking, or peacekeeping. This is how enormous amounts of taxpayers' money are squandered on all kinds of nonsense and as aid money in foreign countries for this and that, while in our own country many less fortunate people are starving, living on the streets, dying sick and miserable and having to endure all kinds of evil. But this is of no concern to all those who pretend to be miserable, dirty and mendacious hypocrites in order to fraudulently gain their positions, to enrich themselves and also to play out their degenerating might. This is to be seen in the same manner as the religions and various cults that exploit their believers in many ways through lies and deceit and deny them the truth through deception, as this cult leader called Jedi Reach alias Jediah Ramnarine does. But enough has been said about that now, I think, so I will move on to other things. Obviously, misunderstandings are arising again, and this time it is about the following, which needs to be clarified. Questions or issues arise that are unclear or cause concern, such as the following, which Elizabeth answers in detail.
First question. In the contact reports, nonsensical sports, such as football or dangerous extreme sports, are mentioned. Now, it is not clear to me whether all ball sports are generally nonsensical or not suitable for adults. Could you give a short list of which sports categories, not individual sports, are sensible and which can also be played in competitions, similar to the Plejaren?
Answer. As far as we know, the Plejaren consider moderate sports activities such as hiking, walking, swimming, gymnastics and aerobics to be good sporting activities. There is also no objection to ball sports of any kind, as long as they are not organized as extreme competitive sports, but as enjoyable, interpersonal and unifying events. The contact reports primarily refer to football and extreme sporting events, which are entirely dedicated to commerce, the desire for profit, the glorification of sports idols, and the financial rip-off of fans. This has developed in a particularly negative wise, since huge sums of money have played a major role in the professional sports circus. These competitive sporting events no longer have anything to do with healthy, physical exercise, but are purely a very profitable business model for the persons, advertising agencies, organizers, etc. involved. Viewers at home in front of the TV or in a stadium identify with the success or defeat of their idols, make their mood and spirits dependent on the performance of other persons, and, depending on the situation, find themselves in an abnormally euphoric state or deeply frustrated and devastated. This behavior makes human beings dependent, manipulable, lacking in initiative and deluded. This is therefore completely against the nature of human beings, because it is important in every respect for a fulfilled, enjoyable, and satisfied life that we are proactive and achieve something ourselves. This can be done through sporting activity, physical and mental labor, as well as by creating our own progressive ideas.
Second question. Thanks to Edward's teachings, it has become clear to me which types and behaviors of sexual intercourse and onanism are for or against the creational laws and recommendations. It is still unclear to me what the situation is with erotic literature. Is reading such books a violation of the laws and recommendations, even if, for example, they only deal with fictional or fictitious characters?
Answer. According to the creation energy teaching, human beings are completely free to satisfy their personal erotic needs, which also applies to erotic literature, as long as they do not violate the creational natural laws of decency, morality, respect, and the equality of the sexes. This means that degeneration such as prostitution, humiliation, coercion, oppression, mistreatment of another person, and even worse, such as sexual abuse of children, rape, and sodomy, should never appear in literature as sexual fantasies or even as acts. Such degenerations have nothing to do with clean eroticism. The human being, even if he or she does not personally practice these acts, would nevertheless contaminate his or her thinking and feeling and his or her psyche with indecent, disrespectful, and, in the case of fantasies of abuse, completely degenerate thoughts and thus lower his or her morals to a very low level.
Third question. I am worried about the future of Earth. Are there no technological advances that the Playa could give us through impulse teachings, leading scientists or clever tinkerers that are safe for Earth humans? By that I mean new and advanced technology, but which cannot be used to make weapons for further murder and manslaughter.
Answer: it is not responsible for the Playaran to give impulse teachings to our scientists, because unfortunately it must always be expected that everything would be used in a negative wise. Serious scientists with integrity are few and far between, and unfortunately, they do not have the corresponding powers to implement good ideas that are progressive for earthly humanity.
Fourth question. There does not seem to be too much interest in geothermal energy. In Switzerland, they stopped drilling in Basel when there were a lot of minor earthquakes. Would Earth humans have to drill much deeper into the Earth's interior in order to utilize geothermal energy more effectively?
Answer: drilling deeper into the Earth's interior would entail the considerable risk of drilling into the magma chambers. Earth science should be aware of this fact.
Elizabeth's answers are good and correct, because the practice of sports, as practiced in various wise on Earth and mentioned in our conversations, is generally harmful in terms of the excessive inactivity of spectators, who inevitably suffer from a physical atrophy of mobility.
In this regard, it is probably necessary for me to explain everything a little more clearly and to clarify the actual meaning of the whole rejection of the various sports. Because on Earth, very many sports activities are only aimed at making a commercial profit. In other words, only business interests and a trade that brings in money and more money, which is taken from the lowly intelligent and simple-minded spectators through high admission fees, without them realizing in their fanaticism and sham thinking that they are not doing themselves any good with their sports mania. A great many sports are therefore only commercially based and consequently geared towards raking in large sums of money, which is taken out of the pockets of the irresponsible, immobile, and also fanatical and stupid spectators. Examples include football and cycling, ice hockey, boxing matches, wrestling, gymnastics, handball, tennis, dancing, athletics, horse riding, and other commercially exploitable sports. The organizers of these sporting events make themselves very rich by raking in outrageous entrance fees and even amass fortunes in the millions at the expense of fanatical spectators who are unable to think for themselves and willingly allow themselves to be led like blind dogs as their masters wish. However, the fact that the majority of these spectators are not involved in sporting activities themselves, but are just stupid and fanatical spectators and thus neglect their physical exercise in a negative wise, making them susceptible to all kinds of illnesses, is not understood anywhere. This is also demonstrated by the fact that a very large proportion of these sports enthusiasts are becoming increasingly obtuse and even deviant in terms of their education and understanding of all the necessities of life. And as I know, you Playaran once calculated 3 or 4 years ago how many Earthlings there were of this kind in large numbers at that time, a very large proportion of whom had health problems as a result of insufficient physical exercise. In addition to this, you found that another large proportion were unusually uneducated and even completely unfit for independent living.
That corresponds to what we have fathomed.
But these findings, that is to say, clarifications, will be of no use, Because the Earthlings will not care and even deny everything, because they are unteachable. Only very few will give it any thought of their own. But this question here, where have the largest animals ever lived on land, I should ask you?
I do not know that, because I have no knowledge of what happened in the Earth's past and what it was like.
Then perhaps that will suffice if I answer and say what I saw with Svath. When I think what I could observe in the sea in Antarctica, really and truly giant creatures, as well as giant land creatures about 1 million years ago or so, where Asia is today and also South America today, there were giant animals that were also hunted by early humans and used as food. This was indeed the case, even if so-called scientists today deny this and claim that there were no early humans back then. But in fact there were, because I have seen them myself hunting large animals, for example those whose genus and species still exist today, but which were much larger back then. That was the case where Asia and South America are today. Early humans also lived there back then, as did giant animals.
I am aware of this from my father's annals, which cover a great deal, but of which I have only been able to read very little. But now I have something else that,